The words cut through the air like glass. I still don't understand why I'm paying for this. She looks fine to me. Christopher Westbrook stood in the doorway of the master bedroom, his 6-foot frame blocking the afternoon light. His tailored suit probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His watch caught the light as he gestured dismissively toward the woman checking his wife's blood pressure. Simone Westbrook lay propped against silk pillows, her beautiful dark skin looking ashen, her normally bright eyes dimmed by exhaustion and medication. She watched her husband of 8 years with an expression that might have looked like weakness to anyone who didn't know better. But there was something else in those eyes now. Something calculating. Mr. Westbrook, your wife's condition requires constant monitoring, Valerie Patterson, the registered nurse, said calmly. She didn't look up from the blood pressure cuff. Her numbers this morning were still elevated. The stress on her heart is serious. Christopher laughed. Actually laughed. Stress. Right. Because lying in bed all day in a mansion is so stressful. He walked further into the room, his expensive shoes silent on the plush carpet. You know what real stress is? Running a $50 million commercial real estate portfolio. Making decisions that affect hundreds of employees. That's stress. Not whatever this is. He waved his hand toward Simone like she was furniture. Valerie finished taking the reading and made a note on her chart. Her movements were precise and professional. She'd been doing this job for 15 years, and she'd seen men like Christopher Westbrook before. Men who thought their money made them better than everyone else. Men who thought kindness was weakness. Sir, medical stress doesn't discriminate based on bank accounts, Valerie said evenly. Your wife's blood pressure is 170/100. That puts her at serious risk for stroke or heart attack. The bed rest and monitoring are necessary. Christopher moved closer to the bed, looking down at Simone with an expression that was somewhere between annoyance and contempt. This was the man she'd loved. The man she'd married in a garden ceremony with 200 guests. The man who'd promised to honor and cherish her in sickness and health. You're milking this, he said directly to Simone. His voice was lower now, almost a hiss. You know I have that conference in Miami this weekend. But now I have to deal with worried calls from your mother and my mother asking if you're okay. It's embarrassing. Simone's hand trembled slightly on the blanket. From weakness or rage it was hard to tell. I'm sorry, she whispered. The words came automatically after years of trying to please him. You should be. Christopher checked his watch. And you? He turned to Valerie. I'm not paying you to sit around all day taking blood pressure every hour. She can do that herself with one of those drugstore monitors. You're what, $200 a day? That's $1,400 a week for basically nothing. Valerie stood up, meeting his eyes. She was a solid woman in her mid-40s with warm brown skin and gray-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore simple scrubs and sensible shoes. To Christopher she probably looked like exactly what he called her, a nobody. Your insurance covers 70% of my fee, Valerie said calmly. And I'm providing skilled nursing care, not just blood pressure checks. I'm monitoring your wife's medications, watching for warning signs of cardiac events, documenting her symptoms for her cardiologist, and making sure she doesn't develop complications from bed rest like blood clots or pneumonia. Christopher's jaw tightened. He didn't like being corrected. Especially not by people he considered beneath him. I don't care what the insurance covers. It's still my money. And honestly, I don't know what kind of nursing school you went to, but in the real world, people work for their money. They don't get paid to hover around making sick people feel more sick. Christopher, please, Simone said softly from the bed. Don't what? Tell the truth. He turned back to his wife. You used to run a business, Simone. You used to work 12-hour days. Now look at you. Lying in bed, pale and weak, with some stranger taking care of you because you can't even manage to take your own pills. The cruelty in his voice was casual. This wasn't anger. This was just how he saw the world now. How he saw her. Valerie began packing up her equipment, her movements unhurried. I'll be back this evening for the 6 o'clock check, she said to Simone. Try to rest. And drink the water I left on your nightstand. She doesn't need you coming back tonight, Christopher said. In fact, maybe we should rethink this whole arrangement. There are cheaper options. Home health aides, not full nurses. People who actually need the work. Valerie looked at him for a long moment. Something flickered in her eyes. Not anger exactly, but something close to pity. That decision is up to Mrs. Westbrook, she said quietly. She hired me. Not you. Christopher's face flushed. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone wearing scrubs that probably came from a discount store. I pay the bills in this house, he said, his voice rising. Everything here is mine. This house. That bed. Even the business she thinks she runs, I'm the one who gave her the seed money. I'm the one who co-signed the loans. Without me she'd be nothing. And you? You're just some healthcare worker who probably couldn't make it as a real doctor. Simone closed her eyes. Each word from her husband landed like a physical blow. But underneath the hurt, something else was happening. Something was hardening inside her. Crystallizing. Valerie picked up her medical bag. I'll see myself out, she said. She paused at the bedroom door. Mrs. Westbrook, remember what we talked about. Rest is the most important thing right now. She left, her footsteps quiet on the stairs. Christopher waited until he heard the front door close, then turned back to Simone. I'm leaving for Miami tomorrow instead of Friday, he said, his tone completely normal now, as if the last 10 minutes hadn't happened. Business opportunity that can't wait. I'll be back Monday night. Try not to have any emergencies while I'm gone. Brittany going with you? Simone asked. Her voice was so soft he almost didn't hear. Christopher froze. Just for a second. Then he smiled. Not a nice smile. My assistant needs to be at the meetings, he said. You know that. Right. The meetings. Simone looked at him directly now. Have a good trip, Christopher. Something in her tone made him pause. But then he shrugged and headed for the door. I'll send money for the nurse if you insist on keeping her. But find someone cheaper next week. We're not made of money. He laughed at his own joke. They both knew they were absolutely made of money. When he was gone, Simone lay very still in the big bed, staring at the ceiling. Her heart monitor beeped steadily beside her. Her blood pressure cuff sat on the nightstand. Bottles of medication lined the dresser. She wasn't faking being sick. The collapse had been real. The dangerously high blood pressure was real. The stress her body was under was very, very real. But she wasn't as helpless as she looked. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She picked it up with steady hands. The message was from Valerie. Got it all. Audio and video. He's worse than you said. Simone typed back with one word, good. She set the phone down and closed her eyes. Not to rest. To plan. Christopher thought he was so smart. He thought she was weak. He thought the nurse was nobody important. He had no idea what was coming. And when he found out, when he finally understood who Valerie really was and what she'd been doing these past 6 weeks, it would already be too late. Simone's lips curved into the smallest smile. The mockery had been the biggest mistake of Christopher's life. He just didn't know it yet. 3 months earlier, Simone's life had looked completely different. She'd woken up at 6 in the morning as always, slipped out of bed without waking Christopher, and headed downstairs to her home office. The room was her favorite in the whole mansion, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking their 2-acre garden, walls painted a soft cream color that she'd custom mixed herself, and shelves displaying her design awards and favorite fabric samples. Simone Grace Designs had been her dream for 10 years. She'd started with one small client, then another, building her reputation project by project. Now she had a team of 5 designers, a studio downtown, and a waiting list of clients who wanted her signature style, elegant, comfortable spaces that made people feel at peace in their own homes. That morning she'd been working on renderings for a penthouse renovation. The client wanted something bold, unexpected. Simone had sketched out a plan using deep blues and metallics, modern furniture with traditional African art. It was risky but beautiful. Still working? Christopher's voice made her jump. He stood in the doorway in his running clothes, already sweaty from his morning jog. Even at 42, he was handsome, tall, athletic, with dark brown skin and the kind of confident smile that had first attracted her at a charity auction 12 years ago. Just finishing the Callaway proposal, Simone said, smiling up at him. I think they're going to love it. Christopher crossed the room and looked over her shoulder at her computer screen. He was quiet for a moment. It's nice, he finally said. The word nice landed flat. Very colorful. Simone's smile faded slightly. You don't like it? I didn't say that. Christopher straightened up. It's just very bold. Are you sure that's what they want? Sometimes you get carried away with the artistic stuff when clients really just want something simple and expensive looking. I showed them preliminary sketches. They specifically asked for bold. If you say so. He kissed the top of her head. I'm going to shower. Don't forget we have the Hendersons' party tonight. I remember, Simone said. But Christopher was already walking away. She turned back to her computer, the excitement she'd felt about the design dampened. Christopher had been like this more and more lately. Dismissive. Every conversation about her work ended with some subtle criticism or redirection. It hadn't always been this way. When they first got married, he'd seemed proud of her business. He'd introduced her to potential clients, bragged about her talent at parties. He'd even helped her secure a loan to open her studio, co-signing the paperwork because her credit history was shorter than his. But somewhere in the last 3 years, something had shifted. His support had turned into something else. Control disguised as concern. The day continued in a blur of meetings and calls. Simone's assistant Nicole helped her finish the Callaway proposal. They landed the job that afternoon, a $90,000 contract that would take 4 months. Nicole literally screamed with excitement in the office. Simone had driven home that evening feeling accomplished. Proud. She'd changed into a black dress for the Hendersons' party, spent time on her makeup and hair. She wanted Christopher to see her the way he used to, as a partner, as someone impressive in her own right. The party was at a country club, full of Christopher's business associates and their wives. Simone knew most of them. She'd spent 8 years learning to navigate these events, making small talk, smiling at the right moments. Christopher introduced her as my wife, instead of by name. It was a small thing. She'd noticed it before but never really thought about it. All the men did it. My wife this, my wife that. Like they were accessories. Around 9 o'clock, Simone went looking for Christopher to tell him about the Callaway contract. She wanted to share her good news. She walked through the club's main rooms, checking the bar, the card room, the back terrace. She found him in a quiet corner of the library. He wasn't alone. A young woman sat beside him on a leather couch. She was maybe 26, 27. Light brown skin, long dark hair, wearing a dress that was slightly too tight and too short for a business event. Christopher's hand rested on her thigh. They were laughing about something. Close together. Intimate. Simone stood frozen in the doorway. She recognized the woman vaguely, Brittany something. Christopher's new assistant. He'd hired her 6 months ago to help manage his office. Christopher looked up and saw Simone. For just a second, guilt flashed across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by casual confidence. There you are, he said, not moving his hand. Brittany and I were just discussing the Morrison property deal. You remember Brittany, right? My assistant. Brittany looked at Simone with something like challenge in her eyes. Or maybe triumph. Hi, Mrs. Westbrook, she said sweetly. Christopher talks about you all the time. Simone's mouth felt dry. Her heart pounded in her chest. But she smiled. Some deep instinct made her smile and nod and act like nothing was wrong. That's nice, she said quietly. Christopher, I'm not feeling well. Can we go home? Already? He frowned. We just got here. Please. Something in her voice must have convinced him. Christopher stood up, his hand sliding off Brittany's thigh. Sure. Let me grab our coats. The ride home was silent. Christopher drove with one hand on the wheel, whistling along to the radio like nothing had happened. Simone stared out the window at the passing streetlights, her mind racing. Maybe she'd imagined it. Maybe they really were just discussing business. Christopher had assistants before. He'd never cheated. They had problems but not that. Not infidelity. But she couldn't stop seeing his hand on Brittany's thigh. The way they'd been sitting so close. The look in Brittany's eyes. When they got home, Christopher went straight upstairs. I have early meetings tomorrow. Don't wake me up when you get ready. Simone stood in their enormous kitchen alone, still in her black dress and heels. The house was silent around her. 10,000 square feet of custom-designed perfection. She'd chosen every paint color, every piece of furniture, every light fixture. She'd made this place beautiful for them. For their life together. And Christopher had someone else's thigh under his hand. Simone walked to her office and opened her laptop. She wasn't sure what she was looking for at first. Then she opened their shared calendar. Christopher's schedule appeared color-coded, detailed. He kept track of everything. She scrolled back through the past 6 months. There they were. Appointments marked Morrison meeting, or PP property planning. At least 2 or 3 per week. Always in the evening. Always lasting several hours. But Christopher had closed the Morrison deal 4 months ago. And he'd never mentioned any property planning projects. Simone clicked on the most recent appointment. Last Thursday. 7 to midnight. Location, downtown office. Except Christopher had come home at 7:30 that night. She remembered because they'd eaten dinner together. He'd been in a good mood. Relaxed. She checked another appointment. Then another. Almost all of them showed locations and times that didn't match what Christopher had actually done. Fake appointments. Cover stories. Simone sat back in her chair, her hands shaking. How long had this been going on? Months? A year? Longer? She wanted to cry. Wanted to scream. Wanted to run upstairs and confront him and demand the truth. Instead, she opened a new browser window and typed, "Divorce lawyer women's rights." Because somewhere deep inside, underneath the hurt and shock, Simone knew something critical. If she confronted Christopher now, with nothing but suspicion and calendar appointments, he'd lie. He'd explain it away. He'd make her feel crazy for even questioning him. She'd been married to him long enough to know how he worked. Christopher was a businessman. He dealt in leverage and strategy. If she was going to leave him, if she was going to protect herself and her business, she needed to be smarter. She needed proof. The search results loaded on her screen. Dozens of law firms. Reviews. Consultation offers. Simone clicked on one. Then another. Reading. Learning. Planning. By the time she closed her laptop at 2 in the morning, her sadness had transformed into something harder. Something focused. Christopher thought he was so clever. Thought she was just his pretty wife who played at having a business. He had no idea what she was capable of. He was about to find out. Simone didn't sleep that night. She lay beside Christopher in their king-size bed, listening to him snore, watching shadows move across the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his hand on Brittany's thigh. Heard the fake warmth in her voice. "Christopher talks about you all the time." The words made Simone's stomach turn. How long had they been together? How many people knew? Had Christopher's business partners seen them and said nothing? Had their friends known and kept the secret? She felt stupid. Blind. Like everyone had been laughing at her behind her back while she smiled and played the perfect wife. At 6 in the morning, Christopher's alarm went off. He rolled out of bed without looking at her, headed for the shower. 15 minutes later, he came out dressed in a dark gray suit, already on his phone. "Meeting all morning," he said, adjusting his tie. "Don't wait up tonight. Probably going to be late." "With Brittany?" The question came out before Simone could stop it. Christopher looked up from his phone. His expression was perfectly neutral. "She's my assistant. She attends meetings. That's her job." "Right. Her job. What's that supposed to mean?" Simone sat up in bed, pulling the sheet around her. "Nothing. I'm just asking." Christopher studied her for a moment, his dark eyes calculating. Then he smiled. That charming smile that used to make her heart race. "You're not jealous, are you? Baby, Brittany's a kid. She's nothing compared to you." He came over and kissed her forehead. "You're my wife. The woman I chose. Don't forget that." The words should have been reassuring. Instead they felt like a warning. When Christopher left, Simone got up and made coffee with shaking hands. She'd barely slept. Her head pounded. But her mind was crystal clear. She had two choices. She could confront Christopher directly, demand the truth, maybe even threaten divorce. Or she could be smart about this. Simone pulled out her laptop and looked at the law firm websites she'd bookmarked the night before. One name kept appearing in multiple reviews and articles: Gabrielle Morrison, family law attorney specializing in high-net-worth divorces. The name Morrison triggered a memory. Simone scrolled through her own contacts and found it, Gabrielle Morrison. They'd been roommates at State University 20 years ago. Simone had gone into design, Gabrielle into law. They'd lost touch after graduation, exchanged Christmas cards for a few years, then fallen out of contact completely. But Gabrielle was listed as one of the top divorce attorneys in the city. And she'd known Simone before Christopher, before money, before any of this. Simone picked up her phone and called the number on the website before she could talk herself out of it. "Morrison and Associates, how may I direct your call?" "I need to speak with Gabrielle Morrison, please." "Tell her Simone Grace is calling. We were roommates in college." There was a pause. Then, "Please hold." 2 minutes later, a familiar voice came on the line. "Simone Grace?" "As in Simone Grace Under Pressure, who once talked our chemistry professor into giving us a 2-day extension on our final project." Despite everything, Simone smiled. "That's me. Though I go by Simone Westbrook now. I heard you got married. Interior design business too, right? I've seen your work featured in magazines. Girl, you're doing amazing." "Thanks. That's actually why I'm calling. I need a lawyer. A good one. And I need someone I can trust completely." The warmth in Gabrielle's voice shifted to professional concern. "Tell me what's going on." Simone took a breath and told her everything. The party. Christopher's hand on Brittany's thigh. The fake calendar appointments. The dismissive way he treated her work. The growing sense that something was very wrong in her marriage. Gabrielle listened without interrupting. When Simone finished, there was a long silence. Can you meet me today? Gabrielle finally asked. Not at my office. Somewhere private. There's a coffee shop on Harrison Street called The Daily Grind. 2 o'clock. I'll be there. And Simone? Don't tell Christopher. Don't tell anyone. Just come. The coffee shop was small and tucked away in a neighborhood Simone rarely visited. She arrived 15 minutes early and ordered tea she didn't drink, sitting at a corner table watching the door. Gabrielle walked in at exactly 2 o'clock. She'd changed from the young woman Simone remembered. Her hair was shorter, styled in a professional cut, and she wore a sharp burgundy suit. But her eyes were the same. Kind and intelligent. They hugged. For a moment, Simone felt like crying. It had been so long since anyone had hugged her with real affection. You look tired, Gabrielle said gently, sitting down across from her. I haven't been sleeping. I'm not surprised. Gabrielle pulled out a legal pad and pen. Okay, let me be very direct with you. I'm going to ask some hard questions. Some of them might make you angry or defensive. But I need honest answers if I'm going to help you. Can you do that? Simone nodded. First question, do you want to save your marriage or end it? I don't know. Yesterday I would have said save it. But now I'm not sure there's anything left to save. That's honest. Second question, what assets do you have that are solely in your name? Simone thought about it. My business. Simone Grace Designs. The accounts, the client contracts, the studio lease. Are you sure? Is Christopher's name on anything related to your business? A cold feeling spread through Simone's chest. He co-signed the original business loan 8 years ago. And he convinced me to add him as a signatory on the business checking account. For tax purposes, he said. Gabrielle's expression didn't change, but Simone saw her grip the pen tighter. When was that? 2 years ago. Have you checked the account recently? The activity? Withdrawals? Christopher handles most of our finances. He has an accountant who manages everything. Simone listened to me carefully. Tomorrow morning, first thing, you need to go online and check every account that has your name on it. Business accounts, personal accounts, credit cards, everything. Look at transactions going back at least 2 years. Can you do that? What do you think I'm going to find? Gabrielle leaned forward. I've handled a lot of divorces, Simone. Men like Christopher, wealthy, controlling, having affairs, they follow patterns. They don't just cheat. They cover their tracks. They move money. They protect their assets while leaving their wives vulnerable. I'm not saying Christopher is definitely doing that. But you need to check. Simone felt sick. What else? You need proof of the affair. Concrete evidence. Photos, messages, witnesses. Without proof, it becomes he said, she said. And in court, that rarely works out well for the woman. How do I get proof? Gabrielle wrote a name and phone number on her legal pad and slid it across the table. Dennis Patterson. Private investigator. He's expensive but worth it. Tell him I sent you. He'll follow Christopher, document his activities, get you photos and reports. It usually takes a few weeks. Simone stared at the name. Dennis Patterson. Hiring a private investigator felt extreme. Like something from a movie, not her real life. I know this is a lot, Gabrielle said softly. I know it feels overwhelming. But Simone, if you're going to leave Christopher, you need to do it right. You need to protect yourself and your business. Men like him don't just let go. They fight. And they fight dirty. What if I'm wrong? What if it's innocent and I'm destroying my marriage over nothing? Then Dennis will tell you that. He'll follow Christopher for a few weeks and come back with nothing. You'll have peace of mind. But Simone. Gabrielle reached across the table and touched her hand. Trust your gut. You called me for a reason. Something isn't right. You know it. Simone nodded slowly. What's this going to cost? The investigator, the legal fees if I file for divorce. Don't worry about that right now. We'll figure it out. First step, check your accounts tomorrow. Call Dennis tomorrow. Then we'll talk again next week and make a plan based on what you find. They finished their coffee talking about old college memories, mutual friends, anything except Christopher and divorce. But when Simone left an hour later, she felt different. Not better exactly, but steadier. She had a plan. She wasn't alone. The next morning, Christopher left early for a breakfast meeting. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, Simone went to her office and opened her laptop. She logged into her business bank account. The one Christopher was a signatory on. The screen loaded. Simone scrolled through recent transactions. Everything looked normal at first. Payments to vendors, employee salaries, rent for the studio. Then she went back further. 6 months. A year. 2 years. There. Transfer she didn't recognize. $20,000 moved to an account she'd never heard of. Then another $15,000. Then $30,000. Over the past 2 years, more than $200,000 had been quietly moved out of her business account into accounts she didn't control. Simone's hands shook as she printed the bank statements. Page after page of transfers. Her money. Her hard work. Gone. She picked up her phone and called the number Gabrielle had given her. Patterson Investigations. Dennis Patterson, please. Gabrielle Morrison referred me. One moment. A man's voice came on the line. Deep and calm. This is Dennis. Mr. Patterson, my name is Simone Westbrook. I need someone followed. And I need proof of where my money went. I can help with that. When can you meet? Today. As soon as possible. How about 2 hours? I'll text you an address. Simone hung up and looked at the bank statements spread across her desk. Christopher hadn't just cheated on her. He'd been stealing from her for 2 years. The hurt was still there. But underneath it, something harder had taken root. She was going to take her life back. Every single piece of it. Dennis Patterson was not what Simone expected. She'd imagined someone shady, maybe wearing all black with a camera around his neck. Instead, the man who met her at a small office near the courthouse looked like somebody's uncle, 50-ish, average height, brown skin, wearing jeans and a comfortable jacket. Mrs. Westbrook? He shook her hand firmly. Come on in. Coffee? Water? No thank you. Simone sat in the chair across from his desk. The office was small but organized. File cabinets, a computer, a few photos of what might have been his family. Dennis sat down and pulled out a notepad. Gabrielle gave me a brief overview. Suspected affair, possible financial fraud. But I want to hear it from you. Start wherever you want. Simone told him everything. Again. The party, the bank transfers, the fake calendar appointments. By the time she finished, she felt exhausted. How many times would she have to tell this story? Dennis had been taking notes. This is pretty straightforward. I'll need a few photos of Christopher, something recent where I can see his face clearly. A list of his regular locations. Office address, gym, favorite restaurants, anywhere he goes routinely. You really think you'll catch him? Mrs. Westbrook, in my experience, people having affairs get comfortable. They stop being careful. They think they're smarter than they are. Your husband has been doing this for at least 6 months based on what you've told me. That means he has a routine. Routines are easy to document. How long will it take? You're not going anywhere today, Dr. Patel said firmly. We're running tests to make sure you haven't had any organ damage. High blood pressure like this doesn't come from nowhere. It builds over time. When's the last time you saw a doctor? I don't know. A year? 2 years. That's what I thought. Mrs. Westbrook, your body is under extreme stress. We're going to keep you overnight for observation. I'm prescribing medication to bring your blood pressure down gradually. But medication alone won't fix this. You need to identify and eliminate the source of stress in your life. If only it were that simple, Simone thought. They moved her to a private room. Nicole stayed with her until evening, then reluctantly went home when Simone insisted. I'll call your husband, Nicole said. He should be here. No, Simone said quickly. Then softer, I'll call him myself. Don't worry. When Nicole left, Simone lay in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling. She should call Christopher. Tell him she'd collapsed. That she was in the hospital. But she didn't want him here. Didn't want his fake concern. Didn't want to watch him pretend to care while he texted Brittany behind her back. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dennis. Friday report ready. Sending encrypted email now. Simone opened her laptop, Nicole had thought to bring it, and logged into the encrypted email account. Dennis's latest report loaded. More photos. Christopher and Brittany at a beach resort 2 hours outside the city. They'd spent the entire weekend there. While Christopher had told Simone he was at a business conference in Atlanta. One photo showed them on a balcony at sunset. Christopher's arms were around Brittany. They were kissing. Simone's blood pressure monitor started beeping. The numbers climbed. 160. 170. 180. A nurse rushed in. Mrs. Westbrook, you need to calm down. Take slow breaths. What happened? Nothing, Simone lied. I'm fine. But she wasn't fine. Her body was breaking down under the weight of Christopher's betrayal, under the stress of pretending, under the exhaustion of living a double life. The nurse adjusted her medication. The doctor wants you on bed rest for at least 6 weeks. No work. No stress. Complete rest while we get your blood pressure stabilized. 6 weeks. Simone's design business couldn't afford for her to be gone 6 weeks. She had clients, deadlines, contracts. But as she lay there, machines beeping around her, another thought occurred. 6 weeks of bed rest. At home. With a nurse to monitor her. A nurse who could also monitor Christopher. Simone picked up her phone and called Gabrielle. I'm in the hospital, she said when Gabrielle answered. Nothing life-threatening. High blood pressure. But the doctor wants me on bed rest for 6 weeks with home nursing care. Oh Simone, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I'm fine. But Gabrielle, I have an idea. What if the nurse wasn't just a nurse? What if we found someone who could also document what's happening in my house? Christopher's behavior. His absences. His cruelty. There was a pause. That's actually brilliant. Nurses are considered reliable witnesses in court. And if she's there providing legitimate medical care, Christopher can't object to her presence. Can you find someone? Someone we can trust. Let me make some calls. I'll get back to you tomorrow. The next morning, Dr. Patel came in with discharge papers. Your blood pressure has stabilized enough for you to go home, but you must follow strict bed rest protocols. No work. No stress. Stay horizontal as much as possible. I'm referring you to a cardiologist for follow-up. And I strongly recommend hiring a home health nurse to monitor you daily. I'll take care of that, Simone said. Christopher showed up at the hospital around noon. He walked in carrying flowers and wearing a concerned expression. Baby, why didn't you call me sooner? I just got Nicole's message. I came as soon as I could. Simone looked at him. Really looked at him. The man she'd loved for 12 years. The man who'd made her feel safe and cherished. Where had that person gone? Or had he ever really existed? I need to hire a nurse, she said. For home care. The doctor insists. Usually 4 to 6 weeks. I'll follow him, take photos, note times and locations. If he's with this Brittany woman, I'll document that. If there are financial transactions I can observe, fancy hotels, jewelry stores, that kind of thing, I'll document that too. And if you don't find anything? Dennis looked at her kindly. Then you have peace of mind. But Mrs. Westbrook, I'm going to be honest with you. Based on what you've described, the money transfers, the calendar discrepancies, the public display at that party, I'm going to find something. The question isn't if. It's how bad it is. Simone nodded. She pulled an envelope from her purse and slid it across the desk. There's $5,000 in there. Is that enough to start? That'll cover the first 2 weeks. I'll send you a written report every Friday with photos and observations. I use an encrypted email service. You'll need to set up an account. I'll send you instructions. Christopher can't know about this. If he finds out I hired an investigator, he'll what? Dennis's voice was sharp. Mrs. Westbrook, are you afraid of your husband? No, not physically. But he's powerful. He knows lawyers, judges, police officers. If he wanted to make my life difficult, he could. Then we'll be very careful. I've been doing this for 20 years. I know how to stay invisible. Dennis stood up and walked her to the door. One more thing. Document everything yourself too. If your husband says something cruel, write it down with the date and time. If money goes missing, screenshot it. If he lies about where he's going, note it. The more evidence you have, the stronger your case. My case, Simone repeated. The words felt heavy. Real. I'm really doing this. I'm building a case against my husband. You're protecting yourself, Dennis corrected gently. That's different. That's survival. The next 4 weeks became a strange double life. During the day, Simone ran her design business. She met with clients, reviewed fabric samples, managed her team. She smiled and acted normal. At night, she came home to Christopher and pretended everything was fine. Christopher seemed to relax. Maybe he thought the party incident had blown over. Maybe he thought Simone hadn't noticed or didn't care. He stayed out late most evenings. He traveled more than usual. He barely touched her. Every Friday, Simone received Dennis's reports. The first week had photos of Christopher and Brittany at a hotel bar. The second week showed them entering a downtown apartment building together at 9 p.m., not leaving until almost 2 a.m. The third week captured them at a jewelry store, Christopher buying Brittany a diamond bracelet. Each report was like a knife. But Simone read them all. Saved them all. Added them to the growing file in her locked desk drawer. She also checked her bank accounts weekly. More money disappeared. Small amounts now, 5,000 here, 3,000 there. Christopher was careful, spacing out the transfers so they wouldn't be obvious. But Simone saw them all. And documented every single one. The stress was enormous. Simone stopped sleeping more than 4 or 5 hours a night. She lost her appetite. Her assistant Nicole mentioned that she looked tired. Clients asked if she was feeling okay. Just working too hard, Simone would say. Too many projects. It wasn't entirely a lie. She'd taken on 3 new clients in a month, needing the distraction. Needing to prove to herself that she was still capable, still valuable, still something beyond Christopher's discarded wife. By week 5, Simone was exhausted in a way that went beyond lack of sleep. Her head ached constantly. Her chest felt tight. She'd get dizzy standing up too fast. One morning in her design studio, Simone stood up from her desk to get fabric samples from the supply room. The room tilted. Her vision went dark around the edges. She heard Nicole calling her name from very far away. Then nothing. Simone woke up in a hospital bed. Bright lights overhead. Machines beeping. Nicole's worried face hovering above her. "Oh, thank God," Nicole said. "You scared me to death. You just collapsed. One second you were standing, the next you were on the floor." A doctor came in, a young woman with kind eyes and a white coat. "Mrs. Westbrook, I'm Dr. Patel. You're at Mercy Hospital. You collapsed at your workplace. Your blood pressure was dangerously high when the paramedics brought you in. 190 over 120. That's stroke territory." Simone tried to sit up. The room spun. "I need to get back to work. I have a client meeting at 3. Christopher's expression flickered. "Just for a second. Is that really necessary? Those nurses are expensive." "Yes, it's necessary. Unless you want me to die of a stroke." "Of course not. Don't be dramatic." He pulled out his phone. "I'll have my assistant find someone affordable." "No," Simone said firmly. "I'll hire someone myself. A friend is referring someone reliable." Christopher looked up from his phone, surprised. Simone rarely contradicted him. "If you insist." "I do." He helped her into his car and drove her home. The whole way he talked about his day, his meetings, his problems. He didn't ask how she felt. Didn't ask if she was scared. Didn't mention changing his schedule to take care of her. When they got home, he helped her upstairs to their bedroom and then immediately checked his watch. "I have a client dinner tonight. Will you be okay alone?" "I've been alone for years, Christopher. I'll manage." He didn't seem to hear the edge in her voice. "Great. I'll try not to wake you when I get back." When he was gone, Simone lay in bed feeling something close to relief. This was it. Her chance. 6 weeks to gather the last pieces of evidence she needed. 6 weeks to plan her escape from this marriage that had become a beautiful prison. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gabrielle. "Found your nurse. Her name is Valerie Patterson. Dennis's sister. She's a registered nurse with 15 years of experience. She's also worked with family law attorneys before. She knows what to document and how to testify if needed. Can she start Monday?" Simone typed back, "Perfect." She lay back against the pillows and closed her eyes. Everything hurt. Her head, her heart, her whole body. But underneath the pain there was a spark of something else. Oh, Christopher thought he'd won. Thought she was weak and sick and dependent on him. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Monday morning arrived with rain. Simone watched from the bedroom window as a modest sedan pulled into their circular driveway. A woman got out, solid build, natural hair pulled back, wearing navy scrubs and carrying a large medical bag. Valerie Patterson. Simone had spoken with her briefly on the phone Saturday. Valerie's voice had been warm but professional. She'd explained her background, registered nurse, worked in cardiac care for 10 years before transitioning to home health. What she hadn't mentioned on the phone, but what Gabrielle had confirmed, was that Valerie had testified in 3 family law cases involving patient abuse and neglect. She knew how to document. She knew how to bear witness. The doorbell rang. Christopher's voice echoed from downstairs. "I'll get it." Simone heard the front door open. Then Christopher's voice, already annoyed. "You the nurse?" "Valerie Patterson, RN. I'm here to care for Mrs. Westbrook." "Right. Come in. She's upstairs. Second door on the left." Christopher appeared in the bedroom doorway, Valerie behind him. "Your nurse is here," he said to Simone as if she couldn't see that for herself. He looked Valerie up and down. You're qualified for this? Cardiac care. 15 years of experience, including 7 years in ICU cardiac units, Valerie replied calmly. I have my credentials if you'd like to see them. That won't be necessary. Christopher checked his watch. I have to get to the office. Simone, try not to bother me with medical updates unless it's an emergency. He left without kissing her goodbye. They heard his car start then pull away. Valerie set her bag down and turned to Simone. Mrs. Westbrook, I'm Valerie. I understand you've been under a lot of stress lately. The way she said it, with emphasis on stress, made Simone understand. Valerie knew. Gabrielle had told her everything. Please call me Simone. And yes, things have been difficult. Well, let's start with the medical basics. Valerie pulled out a blood pressure cuff, thermometer, and stethoscope. I'm going to take your vitals, ask some questions about your symptoms and medication, and then we'll establish a routine. I'll be here from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, with phone check-ins over the weekend. How does that sound? Perfect. As Valerie worked, checking blood pressure and heart rate, asking about symptoms, Simone studied her. She was probably mid-40s with an open, trustworthy face. The kind of person you'd want taking care of you when you were vulnerable. The kind of person Christopher would completely underestimate. Blood pressure is 150/95, Valerie said, making notes on a chart. Better than it was in the hospital, but still elevated. How much stress are you under daily? Work stress, personal stress. Both, Simone said quietly. My marriage is falling apart. My husband is having an affair. He's also been stealing money from my business accounts. Valerie's pen paused for just a second. Then she continued writing. I see. And you're handling this by yourself? No support system? I hired a lawyer. And a private investigator. I'm building a divorce case. But Christopher doesn't know yet. Which means you're living with the person who's hurting you while planning your escape. That's extraordinarily stressful. Valerie looked up from her chart. Simone, I want to be clear about my role here. Yes, I'm your nurse. I'll monitor your blood pressure, manage your medications, make sure you're healing. But Gabrielle told me about your situation. If you need me to document things, your husband's behavior, his absences, anything that might be relevant to your case, I can do that. I've done it before. And as a licensed healthcare provider, my testimony carries weight in court. Simone felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to be hard. Living here, pretending to be sick while actually being sick, watching your husband treat you badly. You're going to want to scream at him. Confront him. Make him understand what he's done. But you can't. Not yet. Can you do that? I've been doing it for 5 weeks. I can do 6 more. Good. Valerie reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. This looks like a charging dock for my phone. It's actually a camera with audio recording. It's legal in this state to record in your own home. I'm going to put this on your nightstand. If your husband comes in here and says anything relevant, it'll be captured. Won't he notice? Men like your husband don't pay attention to small details in what they consider women's spaces. He's not going to look closely at your nightstand. Valerie set up the device, angling it to capture most of the room. There. Now, let's talk about your medications and care plan. The rest of that first day passed quietly. Valerie checked Simone's blood pressure every 2 hours. She prepared healthy meals, low sodium, heart healthy. She made notes about Simone's symptoms and responses to medication. Christopher came home at 8 p.m. He walked past the bedroom without stopping, went downstairs, and Simone heard the TV turn on. He was watching a game. Not checking on her. Not asking how her first day of home care had gone. Valerie was packing up her things, getting ready to leave for the evening. That's normal behavior for him? She asked quietly, nodding toward the stairs. That's better than normal. Usually he doesn't come home this early. Valerie's mouth tightened, but she didn't comment. I'll be back at 8 tomorrow morning. Call me if you need anything tonight. And Simone? Be careful. Men get dangerous when they realize they're losing control. After Valerie left, Simone lay in bed listening to the sounds of her house. Christopher's voice drifted up. He was on the phone with someone, laughing. Probably Brittany. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dennis Patterson. Week 6 report. Big development. Call when you can talk privately. Simone waited until she heard Christopher's footsteps on the stairs, heading to the guest room where he'd been sleeping for the past 2 weeks. Need my space, he'd said. Your medical equipment is too noisy. When she was sure he was settled, Simone called Dennis. What did you find? Christopher and Brittany rented an apartment together. Downtown, expensive building. Lease is in his name, paid from one of those accounts he transferred money into. They're basically living together 3 or 4 nights a week. Simone closed her eyes. Somehow, knowing he'd set up a whole second home with Brittany hurt even more than the affair itself. There's more, Dennis continued. I followed the money trail. Over the past 2 years, Christopher has moved almost $500,000 from various sources into offshore accounts. Some of it came from your business. Some came from joint accounts. Some I can't trace yet. But Simone, he's been planning this for a long time. This isn't just an affair. This is financial fraud. Can we prove it? I'm working with a forensic accountant now. Give me 2 more weeks. I'll have a complete paper trail. After Dennis hung up, Simone lay in the dark, her mind racing. $500,000. Christopher hadn't just betrayed her emotionally. He'd been systematically robbing her for 2 years. The worst part was how stupid she felt. How naive. She trusted him completely. Signed papers he'd asked her to sign. Added him to accounts. Given him access to everything. Because she'd loved him. And you don't question people you love. But Christopher had never deserved that trust. Maybe he'd never loved her at all. Maybe she'd just been convenient, a smart, successful woman who made him look good at parties while he built his empire and his secret life. Simone's blood pressure monitor beeped. She looked at the numbers. 165/100. Too high. She closed her eyes and practiced the breathing exercises Valerie had taught her. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. Over and over until the numbers started to drop. This was her life now. Lying in bed monitoring her blood pressure while her husband lived a double life. Pretending to be weak while actually being the strongest she'd ever been. 6 more weeks. That's all she needed. 6 more weeks to gather the evidence. To let her body heal enough to handle the stress of divorce proceedings. 6 more weeks, and then Christopher would understand what it felt like to lose everything. And the person he'd dismissed and mocked and betrayed would be the one who took it from him. By week 2 of Valerie's care, Christopher had stopped pretending to be concerned about Simone's health. He barely acknowledged the nurse's presence, treating Valerie like furniture, something that took up space but didn't require consideration. Still here? He'd say when he saw Valerie in the kitchen preparing Simone's lunch. Thought you'd be gone by now. Mrs. Westbrook requires monitoring until 6 p.m., Valerie would reply calmly. Must be nice getting paid to basically do nothing all day. Christopher would grab a water from the refrigerator and leave without another word. But the real cruelty happened in the bedroom. Away from Valerie's immediate presence, though still in range of the hidden camera. One Thursday evening, Christopher came home at 10 p.m. Simone heard him on the stairs, his footsteps were unsteady. He'd been drinking. He appeared in the bedroom doorway, his tie loosened, his shirt half untucked. He looked at Simone lying in bed with her monitors and medications and a book she'd been trying to read. You know what's pathetic? He said, leaning against the doorframe. You lying there playing sick while I'm out there actually working. Actually accomplishing things. Simone set down her book. I'm not playing sick, Christopher. I collapsed. The doctor said if I don't rest, I could have a stroke. The doctor? He repeated mockingly. The expensive doctor who makes money by convincing people they're sicker than they are. You always were gullible, Simone. Easy to manipulate. I'm not being manipulated. I'm following medical advice. Christopher walked into the room, and Simone caught the smell of alcohol and perfume. Brittany's perfume. She recognized it from the bottle Christopher had bought her at that jewelry store. Dennis had photographed him buying both a bracelet and a perfume gift set. You want to know the truth? Christopher sat on the edge of the bed. Simone instinctively moved away. I'm tired of this. Tired of you. You used to be fun. Ambitious. Now you're just this. He gestured at her. Weak. Needy. Always complaining about something. I'm not complaining. I'm recovering. From what? Stress. Please. You run a little design business. You play with colors and fabrics. That's not stress. You want to know what stress is? Try running a $50 million portfolio. Try making decisions that affect hundreds of employees. Try actually mattering. Each word landed like a slap. Simone felt her blood pressure rising, the monitor starting to beep faster. She tried to stay calm. Why are you being like this? Like what? Honest? Christopher stood up. You know, Brittany never complains. Never makes me feel guilty for working late or traveling. She understands what it takes to be successful. There it was. The first time he'd said her name out loud to Simone. Get out, Simone said quietly. What? Get out of my room. Go sleep in the guest room with your guilt-free, understanding girlfriend. Christopher laughed. Your room? This is my house, Simone. Everything here is mine. This bed, these walls, that business you're so proud of, I own all of it. Don't forget that. He left, slamming the door behind him. Simone lay shaking, her heart pounding. The blood pressure monitor beeped urgently. 170, 180, 185. She grabbed her phone and called Valerie, even though it was almost midnight. Valerie answered on the second ring. What's wrong? Christopher just. Simone couldn't get the words out. She was crying now, anger and hurt and exhaustion all mixed together. I'm coming over. Unlock the front door. 15 minutes later, Valerie was in the bedroom checking Simone's vitals, making her take her medication, helping her breathe slowly until the blood pressure started to come down. He said horrible things, Simone whispered. Called me weak and pathetic. Said his girlfriend is better than me. I know. The camera caught everything. Valerie sat on the edge of the bed. Simone, this is emotional abuse. What he's doing to you. You know that, right? I used to think abuse meant hitting. Bruises. I didn't realize words could hurt this much. Words can hurt just as much. Sometimes more. They're designed to make you question yourself. To make you feel worthless. Valerie took Simone's hand. But you're not worthless. You're a successful businesswoman who's going through something terrible while still holding it together. That's not weakness. That's strength. I don't feel strong. You will. When this is over and you're free of him, you'll look back and realize how strong you really are. The next morning, Christopher acted like nothing had happened. He came downstairs whistling, poured coffee, nodded at Valerie who was already there preparing Simone's breakfast. Going to be late tonight? He said casually. Don't wait up. I never do, Simone replied. He looked at her sharply as if trying to determine if that was a challenge. Then he shrugged and left. Valerie brought Simone's breakfast upstairs, scrambled eggs, whole grain toast, fresh fruit. He's getting worse, Valerie observed. The abuse is escalating. Because he senses something, Simone said. Some instinct telling him he's losing control. He just doesn't know why yet. Over the next 2 weeks, Christopher's behavior became more erratic. Some days he'd ignore Simone completely. Other days he'd come into the bedroom and make comments about how much her medical care was costing. How she was a burden. How convenient it would be if she'd just get better already. He started bringing Brittany to the house. Not upstairs, but to the living room, the dining room, the home office that had once been Simone's favorite space. They'd laugh loudly, clearly intimate, while Simone lay upstairs listening. Valerie documented everything. The overnight absences. The verbal abuse. The way Christopher would check on his sick wife for maybe 30 seconds before going back to his real life. One evening, Christopher cornered Valerie in the kitchen. Simone was upstairs resting, and Christopher had come home unexpectedly early. He'd clearly been drinking. You know what I think? He said, blocking Valerie's path to the stairs. I think you're wasting my money. Simone doesn't need full-time care. She needs to stop being dramatic and get back to work. Valerie tried to step around him. Excuse me, Mr. Westbrook. I need to check on your wife. No, you need to answer my question. What exactly are you doing here all day? Taking her blood pressure? Any idiot can do that. Why am I paying you $200 a day to babysit? I'm providing skilled nursing care. Monitoring your wife's cardiac condition, managing her medications, watching for complications. Complications. Christopher moved closer. Valerie could smell the alcohol on his breath. You mean complications like how it's very convenient she got sick right when I'm trying to focus on my business? You think I don't know what's happening here? I don't know what you mean. She's faking it. Getting attention. And you're helping her. Christopher's voice dropped lower. I could fire you right now. Tell you to leave and never come back. This is my house. My money. My decision. Actually, Valerie said calmly, it's your wife's decision. She hired me privately. She pays me from her own account. So unless she fires me, I'll continue providing the care she needs. Christopher's face flushed with anger. For a moment, Valerie thought he might actually push her. His hands clenched into fists. Then Simone's voice came from upstairs. Valerie? Can you come help me? The spell broke. Christopher stepped back, composing himself. Go play nurse, he said. But know that I'm watching. Both of you. Valerie went upstairs quickly, her heart pounding. She found Simone sitting up in bed, looking shaken. I heard, Simone said. I heard everything. I'm fine. But Simone, he's dangerous. The way he looked at me just now. I know. Simone's voice was steady despite her fear. How much longer until Dennis has everything we need? I'll call Gabrielle. Find out. That night, after Valerie had left and Christopher was supposedly at a business dinner, Simone received a text from Dennis. It's time. I have everything. The affair is documented. The financial fraud is documented. Meet with Gabrielle tomorrow. She'll explain the next steps. Simone looked at the message for a long time. This was it. The moment she'd been working toward for months. The evidence was gathered. The case was ready. All that was left was to execute the plan. Her hands shook as she typed back. Tomorrow afternoon. 2 p.m. She set down her phone and looked around the master bedroom. This beautiful room she'd designed. The cream-colored walls, the expensive curtains, the custom headboard. She'd made this space perfect for them. And Christopher had filled it with cruelty and lies. Well, soon it would be hers alone. Every square inch of this house. Her business accounts restored. Her freedom secured. Christopher thought he'd won. Thought she was too weak and sick to fight back. Thought the nurse was just some nobody he could intimidate. He was about to discover how catastrophically wrong he was. And the beautiful thing, the truly satisfying thing, was that he'd never see it coming. The meeting with Gabrielle was scheduled for 2 p.m. at her law office. Simone told Christopher she was going to a doctor's appointment. He barely looked up from his phone when she left. Whatever, he'd said. Try not to get any more sick. This is getting expensive. Valerie drove Simone to the meeting. Technically, Simone's blood pressure had stabilized enough that she could drive herself, but Valerie wanted to be there. Moral support, she'd said. And witness testimony if needed. Gabrielle's office was on the 20th floor of a downtown building. Modern, professional, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A far cry from the coffee shop where they'd first reconnected 5 months ago. Dennis was already there when they arrived. He stood up from the conference room chair and shook Simone's hand firmly. Mrs. Westbrook. Good to see you looking better. Thanks to Valerie's care. And to your work. Simone sat down at the large conference table. Gabrielle said you have everything? Everything, Dennis confirmed. He pulled out 3 large folders from his briefcase. Let me walk you through what we have. For the next hour, Dennis laid out the evidence. Photos of Christopher and Brittany at hotels, at restaurants, at the apartment they shared. Bank statements showing the systematic theft from Simone's business accounts. Phone records demonstrating the frequency of calls and texts between Christopher and Brittany. Video footage from Valerie's camera showing Christopher's verbal abuse and neglect. It was overwhelming. Seeing it all together in one place. Proof of everything Simone had suspected and more. The financial fraud is the most serious issue, Gabrielle explained. Christopher moved over $600,000 from accounts that were legally yours. He did it slowly, thinking you wouldn't notice. But because your name is on those accounts and he never asked permission, it's theft. Criminal theft. Criminal? Simone looked up. Like, police involvement criminal? If you want to pursue it, yes. We could bring criminal charges. But honestly, I think the threat of criminal charges will be more useful in negotiation. No wealthy businessman wants a fraud investigation on his record. Dennis pulled out another document. I also investigated Brittany. Turns out she's not as innocent as she seems. She has a history. 2 previous affairs with married men at other companies. Both ended in lawsuits when the wives found out. She's done this before. She's a predator, Simone said quietly. She saw an opportunity with Christopher, Dennis agreed. A wealthy man with an isolated wife. Classic setup. Valerie spoke for the first time. What about the emotional abuse? The things he said to Simone? Gabrielle nodded. The video evidence is powerful. Judges take emotional abuse seriously, especially combined with financial fraud and infidelity. Simone, you're going to get everything you're entitled to. The house, your business restored, probably spousal support for a period of time, and a favorable settlement. I don't want his money, Simone said. I just want my money back. The money he stole from me. You'll get that. With interest. Plus we're going to make sure he can never access your business accounts again. Everything will be solely in your name. Protected. Simone took a deep breath. So what happens now? Now we schedule a meeting with Christopher. We present him with all of this evidence. We offer him a settlement agreement. If he signs, we file for divorce immediately with an agreed-upon division of assets. If he doesn't sign, we go to court and make all of this public record. He won't sign, Simone predicted. Christopher's too arrogant. He'll think he can fight this. Then we'll bury him in court, Gabrielle said simply. But Simone, I need you to understand something. The next few weeks are going to be hard. Really hard. Christopher is going to be angry when he realizes he's losing. Angry men do desperate things. You might need to leave the house. Stay somewhere safe. I'm not leaving my house, Simone said firmly. He's the one who should leave. Legally, we can't force him out until the divorce is filed and we get a court order. But we can file first thing tomorrow morning. Then we schedule the meeting for his office. Somewhere public where he can't make a scene. Dennis closed his folders. I'll be at the meeting too. Christopher needs to understand that everything is documented. Every affair encounter. Every dollar stolen. Every cruel word. He has no defense. Simone looked at each of them, Gabrielle, Dennis, Valerie. 3 people who'd helped her when she'd been at her lowest. 3 strangers who'd become allies. Thank you, she said. All of you. I couldn't have done this alone. You didn't do it alone, Valerie reminded her. That's the point. You were smart enough to ask for help. They scheduled the meeting with Christopher for Friday at 3 p.m. at his office building. Gabrielle would call Christopher's assistant Thursday morning and tell him that Mrs. Westbrook's legal team needed to discuss some urgent matters. Let him think it was about medical bills or insurance. Let him be unprepared. On the drive home, Simone was quiet. Valerie glanced over at her several times. Second thoughts? Valerie asked. No. Just thinking about what his face will look like when he sees all the evidence. Shocked probably. Then angry. Men like Christopher don't handle losing well. He's going to say terrible things. Try to make me feel guilty. Tell me I'm being unreasonable. Probably. But Simone, you're not doing anything wrong. You're protecting yourself from someone who was stealing from you. Someone who was hurting you. That's not revenge. That's justice. When they got back to the house, Christopher's car was already in the driveway. Unusual, he never came home this early. Valerie and Simone exchanged a look. They went inside carefully. Found Christopher in the living room with Brittany. They were on the couch, clearly intimate, his arm around her shoulders. They jumped apart when Simone and Valerie walked in. You're home early, Christopher said, not sounding sorry at all. Brittany looked at Simone with something like triumph. Like she'd won. Simone felt nothing. No hurt. No anger. Just a cold, clear understanding that this man was a stranger. Whatever love she'd had for him had died over these months of abuse and betrayal. Valerie, let's go upstairs, Simone said calmly. As they walked past, Brittany giggled. Actually giggled. Christopher called after them, we'll try to keep it down. Wouldn't want to disturb the patient. Upstairs, Valerie checked Simone's blood pressure, expecting it to be elevated. But the numbers were normal. 120/80. Perfect. You're doing better, Valerie observed. The medication is working. It's not just the medication, Simone said. It's knowing that tomorrow this ends. Tomorrow I take my life back. That night, Simone barely slept. She lay in the dark listening to Christopher and Brittany downstairs. At some point, she heard them go into the guest room. The room Christopher had been using since Simone got sick. He'd brought his mistress into their house. Into his bed. While his wife lay sick upstairs. Some women would have screamed. Confronted them. Made a scene. Simone did nothing. Just waited for morning. Because Friday at 3 p.m., Christopher would walk into a conference room expecting a boring meeting about medical bills. Instead, he'd find his entire life exploding in front of him. And Simone would be the one holding the detonator. Friday arrived with clear blue skies. Simone dressed carefully that morning, a navy blue suit she'd bought years ago for important client meetings, her natural hair styled elegantly, simple jewelry. She looked professional. Powerful. Nothing like the sick woman in bed upstairs. Christopher was still asleep when she left. He'd stayed out late the night before, supposedly at a business function. Simone knew better. Dennis had sent photos of Christopher and Brittany at an expensive restaurant, holding hands across the table. Gabrielle picked Simone up at 1 p.m. Ready? I've been ready for 5 months. They arrived at Christopher's office building at 2:30. Dennis was waiting in the lobby. He handed Simone a thick envelope. Just in case, he said. Extra copies of everything. If Christopher tries to leave or refuses to look at the evidence, you'll have it right there. Christopher's office was on the 14th floor. His company, Westbrook Commercial Properties, took up half the floor. There was a waiting area with expensive furniture, large windows, photos of the properties Christopher managed. His assistant, not Brittany, an older woman named Helen, greeted them nervously. Mr. Westbrook is in the large conference room. He's not happy about this meeting. He doesn't know what it's about. He'll find out soon enough, Gabrielle said. Helen led them down a hallway to a conference room. Glass walls looked out over the city. Christopher sat at the head of a long table, his laptop open, looking annoyed. This better be quick, he said without standing up. I have actual work to do. Then he saw who'd walked in. Simone. Gabrielle in a sharp suit. Dennis carrying folders. Valerie in professional clothes instead of scrubs. Christopher's expression shifted from annoyance to confusion. What is this? Simone, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be resting. Sit down, Mr. Westbrook, Gabrielle said. We need to talk. I don't have time for dash. Sit down. Gabrielle's voice had steel in it. Unless you want us to have this conversation in your lobby where all your employees can hear. Christopher sat, but his jaw was tight. Who are you? Gabrielle Morrison. Mrs. Westbrook's attorney. This is Dennis Patterson, private investigator. And I believe you know Valerie Patterson, the nurse you've been verbally abusing for 6 weeks. Abusing? I've never dash. Gabrielle opened her briefcase and pulled out the first folder. She slid it across the table to Christopher. Page 1 is photos of you and your assistant Brittany at the Riverside Hotel on 14 separate occasions. Page 3 is photos of you at the apartment you're renting on Madison Avenue, the apartment you share with Brittany 3 to 4 nights a week. Page 7 is a photo of you buying Brittany a diamond bracelet at Cartier while your wife was in the hospital. Christopher's face went pale. He opened the folder with shaking hands. Page 12 begins the financial documentation, Gabrielle continued calmly. Bank statements showing you systematically transferred $643,000 from accounts owned by Mrs. Westbrook into offshore accounts she knew nothing about. That's theft, Mr. Westbrook. Criminal theft. Those were joint accounts. I had every right dash. They weren't joint accounts. They were Mrs. Westbrook's business accounts. She added you as a signatory for emergency purposes only. You abused that access to commit fraud. Gabrielle slid another folder across. Page 18 is video and audio evidence gathered legally by Valerie Patterson during her care of Mrs. Westbrook. It shows you verbally abusing your sick wife. Calling her weak, pathetic, worthless. Bragging about your affair. Threatening both Mrs. Westbrook and her nurse. Christopher looked at Valerie. You recorded me? That's illegal dash. It's completely legal in this state to record in your own home, Valerie said calmly. Your wife's home. Which she hired me to provide care in. Every word you said was captured legally. Dennis spoke for the first time. We also have phone records, credit card statements, witness testimony from hotel staff, and a complete financial analysis showing exactly where your wife's money went. Mr. Westbrook, you don't have a defense. We have you on adultery, fraud, and emotional abuse. Christopher stood up, his chair scraping loudly. This is ridiculous. Simone, tell them this is ridiculous. We can work this out. We don't need lawyers. Simone looked at him. The man she'd loved for 12 years. The man who'd destroyed that love piece by piece. Sit down, Christopher. He sat. Something in her voice made him sit. You asked me once why I was being dramatic about being sick, Simone said. You said I was faking it for attention. You want to know the truth? I collapsed because the stress of discovering your affair and your theft and your lies literally broke my body. My blood pressure was so high I could have died. And while I was lying in the hospital, you were with her. Simone, I can explain dash. You said my business was nothing compared to yours. That I was worthless without you. But Christopher, you're the one who's worthless. You're a thief and a liar. And now everyone is going to know. Gabrielle laid out the final document. This is a proposed settlement agreement. You return every dollar you stole from Mrs. Westbrook with interest. You give her full ownership of the house. You remove yourself from all her business accounts immediately. You agree to spousal support of $10,000 a month for 3 years. In exchange, Mrs. Westbrook won't pursue criminal charges for fraud. This is blackmail. No, this is negotiation. You have 2 choices. Sign this agreement and we file for divorce with agreed terms. It'll be quiet, relatively quick, and you might salvage some of your reputation. Or refuse to sign and we go to court. Everything we have, every photo, every bank statement, every recording becomes public record. Your business associates will know. Your clients will know. The fraud investigation will go public. You'll be ruined. Christopher looked around the table. At Gabrielle's calm professional expression. At Dennis's folders full of evidence. At Valerie's steady gaze. At Simone's face, finally seeing her as she really was, not weak, not helpless, but strong and done with him. "You planned this," he said to Simone. "All of it. The nurse, the recordings, staying sick longer than you needed to." "I got the help I needed to protect myself from you," Simone corrected. "There's a difference." "And Brittany? What happens to her?" "That's not my problem," Simone said. "But I imagine when she finds out you're broke and publicly humiliated, she'll move on to her next target. That's what women like her do. Dennis found 2 other married men she's done this exact thing with before." Christopher looked devastated. Like he'd just realized that Brittany wasn't some great love story. She was a pattern. And he was just another stupid man who'd fallen for it. "I need time to think," he said finally. "You have until Monday at 5 p.m., Gabrielle said. "After that, we file without an agreement and everything goes public." They left him sitting at the conference table, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal. In the elevator going down, Simone felt light. Free in a way she hadn't felt in years. "You did great," Gabrielle said, squeezing her hand. "What do you think he'll do?" "He'll sign. Men like Christopher care about their reputation more than anything. He won't risk public humiliation." Gabrielle was right. Monday at noon, Christopher's attorney called with news that Christopher would sign the agreement. By Wednesday, all the paperwork was done. Christopher transferred the money back to Simone's accounts. He removed himself from all her business documents. He moved out of the house, taking only his personal belongings. Brittany disappeared immediately. Dennis found out later that she'd started dating another executive at a competing real estate firm. Christopher tried calling her, but she blocked his number. She'd gotten what she wanted from him: expensive dinners, jewelry, fun, and now he was no longer useful. The divorce filing happened on Thursday. With the signed agreement, it was straightforward. No contested hearings, no long court battles. The judge reviewed the documents, asked Simone a few questions, and granted the divorce with all the terms they'd agreed to. Just like that, after 8 years of marriage, Simone was free. Christopher's business partners started backing away from him. Word had spread not publicly, but through the professional network about the fraud investigation, the affair with his assistant, the way he'd treated his sick wife. Business deals fell through. Clients moved to other firms. His reputation, built over decades, crumbled in weeks. Meanwhile, Simone's health improved dramatically. Without the stress of living with Christopher, her blood pressure normalized. She stopped needing daily medication. Valerie reduced her visits to once a week, then once a month for check-ins. "See," Valerie said at their final appointment. "You weren't faking being sick. You were being made sick. By him." 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Simone stood in her house, fully hers now, and looked around. She'd already started redecorating. Removing Christopher's influence. Making the space purely hers. Simone Grace Designs was thriving again. With the return money, she'd expanded. Hired 2 more designers. Taken on bigger projects. Word got out about her talent and professionalism, and clients lined up. She'd reclaimed everything Christopher had tried to take from her. Her business. Her home. Her health. Her self-respect. Justice hadn't been about revenge. It had been about standing up and saying, "No more." About protecting herself. About refusing to let someone cruel define her worth. And now, finally, Simone could breathe. 6 months after the divorce, Simone sat in her renovated studio reviewing plans for her biggest project yet. A historic hotel downtown had hired her to redesign all 140 rooms plus the lobby, restaurant, and bar areas. It was a 2-year project worth nearly $2 million. Nicole, her assistant, knocked on the office door. "The fabric samples for the Whitmore suite just arrived. Want me to bring them in?" "Please." "And Nicole? Thank you. For everything. For being there during all of it." Nicole smiled. "You paid me well. And honestly, watching you take your life back was inspiring. You showed me what strength looks like." The studio had changed too. Simone had moved to a larger space in a better neighborhood. The team had grown to 7 designers now, each specializing in different styles. They had a receptionist, a project manager, and a dedicated social media coordinator. Simone Grace Designs wasn't just surviving, it was becoming one of the top firms in the city. Simone had also started something new, a program for women leaving abusive relationships. She partnered with local domestic violence organizations to offer free design consultations for women setting up new homes after leaving their partners. Small things, helping them choose paint colors, finding affordable furniture, making their new spaces feel safe and beautiful. "You don't forget where you came from," she told the coordinator of one shelter. And you don't forget the people who helped you when you needed it. Valerie had indeed written her book, Witnessing, a Nurse's Experience Supporting Abuse Survivors. It was published by a university press and was being used in nursing schools to teach healthcare providers how to recognize and document abuse. Valerie had included Simone's story with permission as one of the case studies. They still met for coffee monthly. Valerie had become a real friend, not just a medical professional who'd happened to help during a crisis. "How's the dating?" Valerie asked one afternoon over lattes. "Actually good." Simone smiled. "Remember Jonathan? The architect I met at that conference. The one you went on like 2 dates with?" "4 dates back then. But we've been seeing each other seriously for 3 months now." Jonathan Wright was everything Christopher wasn't. He listened when Simone talked about her work. He asked thoughtful questions. He respected her boundaries and her independence. They'd gone slowly, building friendship first, then something deeper. He'd been to her house several times. Never once commented on how expensive things were or suggested he should be in charge of anything. He admired what she'd done with the space. Asked about her design choices. Brought wine and offered to cook dinner. "He sounds nice," Valerie said carefully. "But how are you really doing? I mean, after Christopher, are you okay opening yourself up again?" "I'm careful," Simone admitted. "Probably more careful than I need to be. But Jonathan is patient. He understands why I need time. And honestly, Valerie, it feels different with him. Lighter. Like I can just be myself without performing or managing someone else's ego. That's how it should be. I know that now. I didn't know it before." Christopher, meanwhile, had fallen far and hard. His commercial real estate business had lost so many clients that he'd had to close his office and work from home. The offshore accounts were frozen during the fraud investigation, and while he avoided criminal charges, he was under financial scrutiny. His reputation was destroyed. The man who'd once been invited to every important business event in the city was now persona non grata. Simone heard about it through mutual acquaintances. She felt no satisfaction in his downfall. No gloating. Just indifference. He'd made his choices. These were the consequences. Brittany had moved on to her third married executive, according to Dennis, who still kept loose tabs as a favor. The pattern continued. She was predictable. And eventually her reputation would catch up with her too. One day Simone was at a charity gala, the same annual hospital fundraiser she attended every year. She donated her design services for the children's wing renovation. The event was full of people who mattered in the city. Business leaders, philanthropists, community organizers. Simone walked in wearing a royal blue gown, her hair elegant, confidence radiating from every step. She was there with Jonathan, who'd been involved in the architectural planning for the hospital expansion. Across the room she saw Christopher. He looked diminished somehow, wearing a suit that didn't fit quite right. Standing alone near the bar, trying to network but being gently rebuffed by people who'd once courted his attention. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom. For a moment time stopped. Simone could see him calculating, trying to decide if he should approach, if he should apologize, if he should try to explain. But Simone just looked at him, really looked at him, saw him for what he was, a sad, small man who'd had everything and thrown it away because he thought he deserved more without earning it. She turned back to Jonathan, who was telling her about an innovative design feature for the hospital's pediatric rooms. Immediately engaged with what he was saying. Interested. Present. Christopher became invisible to her. Just another face in the crowd. Someone she used to know. Someone who no longer mattered. The gala continued. Simone gave her speech about the pediatric wing donation. She talked about the importance of healing environments. About how spaces affect our mental and emotional well-being. About how children especially need spaces that feel safe and colorful and hopeful. The applause was genuine and warm. People came up afterward to congratulate her, to ask about her design firm, to request her card for future projects. Jonathan stood beside her, proud but not possessive. Supporting but not overwhelming. "You were amazing up there," he said when they finally had a moment alone. "Thank you for being here. Where else would I be?" He kissed her forehead. "This is your moment. Your success. I'm just happy to be part of your life." Simple words. But they meant everything. Because Jonathan saw her as a complete person. Not as an accessory or a status symbol or someone to control. He saw her talent, her strength, her independence, and celebrated all of it. Later that evening, as Simone and Jonathan were leaving, Christopher appeared by the exit. He looked nervous. desperate almost. Simone, can we talk? Just for a minute? Jonathan tensed beside her, but Simone touched his arm gently. It's okay. She stepped a few feet away, giving Christopher space to speak. But not too far. Not alone with him. Never alone with him again. You look good, Christopher said. Happy. I am. I'm sorry. For everything. I was wrong. So wrong. I lost everything because I was stupid and selfish and I didn't appreciate what I had. Simone waited for some feeling to arise. Anger. Satisfaction. Pity. But there was nothing. Just a distant sort of acknowledgement that yes, he was sorry. And no, it didn't matter anymore. I hope you find a way to be better, she said quietly. For yourself. Not for me. I've moved on, Christopher. Completely. I know. I just wanted you to know that I know how badly I messed up. Okay. Simone started to turn away. Do you think, maybe someday, we could be friends? She looked at him then. Really looked at him. No, Christopher. We can't be friends. Friends don't steal from each other. Friends don't abuse each other. Friends don't lie and cheat and break each other's hearts. We were married and you destroyed that. That's something you have to live with. But it's not something I have to carry anymore. Jonathan stepped forward then, his presence gentle but clear. Ready to go? Yes. Simone took his hand. I'm ready. As they walked out into the cool night air, Simone felt it fully, the weight of the past year lifting. The freedom of truly moving forward. Christopher was her past. A painful chapter in her story. But he was no longer her present or her future. He'd lost the power to hurt her. And that, more than any legal victory or financial settlement, was the real triumph. Simone had taken her life back. Every piece of it. And built something better from the ashes of what Christopher had tried to destroy. She was successful. Independent. Loved by people who truly saw her value. She was, finally, completely free. 1 year later, the annual hospital charity gala returned. It had become Simone's favorite event, not just because it supported a cause she cared about, but because it represented how far she'd come. The pediatric wing she'd redesigned was finished. Bright, cheerful rooms with murals of clouds and forests and oceans. Play areas designed to reduce stress. Family spaces where parents could rest while staying close to their children. It had won a National Design Award and been featured in 3 major architecture magazines. More importantly, it was making a real difference. The hospital reported that children recovered faster in the new wing. Parents felt less anxious. Staff said the environment improved morale. Simone had poured her heart into that project. Every color choice, every piece of furniture, every detail reflected something she'd learned from her own healing journey. Spaces matter. Environment matters. Beauty and comfort aren't luxuries, they're necessities for healing. Tonight's gala was celebrating the wing's first anniversary. Simone was being honored as the lead designer. She'd been asked to give a longer speech this year, about the philosophy behind her design choices. She arrived with Jonathan, who she'd been dating seriously for over a year now. They'd recently moved in together, not to her house but to a new place they'd chosen together. A beautiful loft they were designing collaboratively, architect and interior designer working in perfect partnership. It felt right. Equal. Built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Nervous? Jonathan asked as they walked into the ballroom. A little. This speech is more personal than last year's. You'll be wonderful. You always are. The ballroom was more crowded than last year. Over 500 guests. The hospital expansion had been such a success that more donors were getting involved. The energy was optimistic, hopeful. Simone worked the room, greeting people she knew, making new connections. Her business was thriving beyond what she'd imagined. The hotel project was nearly complete and already generating offers for similar large-scale redesigns. She'd hired 3 more designers and was considering opening a second studio location. At some point during the cocktail hour, Simone noticed Christopher across the room. He was alone again, standing in almost the exact same spot as last year. But he looked worse now. His suit was cheaper. His shoulders slumped. He had the appearance of someone who'd given up. Dennis had mentioned, during one of their occasional check-ins, that Christopher's business had finally collapsed completely. He'd declared bankruptcy. Was working as a consultant for a firm he used to consider beneath him. Living in a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that would have horrified him 2 years ago. Brittany, predictably, had moved on long ago. She was on husband number 4 now, a tech executive 20 years older than her who didn't seem to realize he was just the latest target. Christopher saw Simone looking at him. For a moment their eyes met. There was something broken in his expression. Something that might have been regret or might have been self-pity. Simone felt nothing. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Not pity. Just a distant acknowledgement that yes, that man over there used to be part of her life. And now he wasn't. She turned back to the conversation she'd been having with the hospital's CEO about future projects. At 7 p.m. the program began. Dinner was served, an elegant meal that Simone barely tasted. She was mentally rehearsing her speech. When it was time, the hospital's director of development introduced her. Tonight we're honored to recognize the woman whose vision transformed our pediatric wing into a place of healing and hope. She's not just a talented designer, she's a survivor who turned her own journey through difficulty into art that helps others. Please welcome Simone Grace. Simone walked to the podium. The applause was warm and genuine. She took a breath, looked out at the crowd, and began. A year and a half ago, I collapsed in my design studio. The doctors told me my blood pressure was so high I was at serious risk for stroke or heart attack. They asked what was causing so much stress in my life. And I had to face a truth I'd been avoiding: my marriage was killing me. Not metaphorically. Literally. The stress of living with someone who demeaned my work, stole from my business, and made me feel worthless was breaking my body. The room had gone very quiet. This was not the safe, corporate speech people expected at charity galas. I'm telling you this not for sympathy, but because it's relevant to why I design the way I do. After I left my marriage, I started to understand something important. Healing doesn't just happen in our minds and hearts. It happens in the spaces we inhabit. The colors we see. The light that fills our rooms. The comfort of our surroundings. Simone clicked to the first slide, a photo of the pediatric wing's main playroom. Bright blues and greens, natural light flooding through large windows, comfortable furniture, spaces for both activity and rest. When I designed this wing, I thought about what those children needed. Safety, comfort, hope. I thought about what their parents needed. Peace, rest. A sense that healing was possible. And I thought about what the medical staff needed. An environment that supported their work rather than adding stress. She clicked through more images. Patient rooms with cloud murals. Family spaces with soft lighting. Play areas designed to reduce anxiety. Every choice was intentional. The blues and greens are calming colors that lower blood pressure. The natural light regulates sleep cycles and improves mood. The comfortable furniture tells families they're not just passing through, they're supported here. The artwork gives children something positive to focus on during difficult treatments. More slides. Before and after photos showing the transformation. But here's what I've learned. This isn't just about designing for hospitals. This is about understanding that our environments shape us. That we deserve to live and work and heal in spaces that respect our humanity. That beauty and comfort aren't luxuries, they're necessities. Simone paused, looking directly at the audience. 2 years ago, I was lying in a hospital bed wondering if I'd survive the stress of a toxic relationship. Today I'm standing here having created spaces that help other people heal. That transformation didn't happen by accident. It happened because I had people who supported me, a brilliant attorney, a dedicated private investigator, a nurse who became a witness and a friend. It happened because I chose to fight for myself when it would have been easier to give up. She clicked to the final slide, a photo of a child who'd been in the pediatric wing, now recovered and healthy, standing in front of the ocean mural she'd designed. This is Emma. She spent 3 months in our pediatric wing last year during cancer treatment. Her mother told me that Emma would wake up every morning and look at the ocean mural. She'd say it made her feel like she could breathe easier. Like she was somewhere peaceful instead of somewhere scary. Emma is in remission now. She's thriving. Simone's voice caught slightly. That's why I do this work. Not just to make spaces beautiful, but to make them healing. To give people environments that support their recovery, their growth, their hope. She looked out at the crowd one more time. Christopher was visible in the back, his face unreadable. Thank you for supporting this project. Thank you for understanding that design matters. That spaces matter. That creating environments where people can heal and thrive is some of the most important work we can do. And thank you for letting me turn my own journey of healing into something that helps others. The applause was overwhelming. People stood. The hospital CEO had tears in her eyes. Jonathan's face shone with pride. Simone walked back to her seat, feeling lighter than she had in years. She told her story publicly. Not for revenge. Not to shame Christopher. But to show that survival was possible. That healing was possible. That you could take the worst experiences of your life and transform them into something meaningful. After the program ended, people lined up to talk to her. Other survivors of abuse thanking her for her honesty. Designers asking about her process. Potential clients wanting to discuss projects. Jonathan stayed close, managing the crowd gently, making sure Simone had space to breathe. At some point, Christopher approached. He stood at the edge of the group waiting to talk to Simone. Several people recognized him and turned away with cold expressions. His fall from grace was public knowledge now. When he finally reached her, Christopher looked even smaller up close. Tired. Aged beyond his years. That was a powerful speech, he said quietly. Thank you. I know you were talking about me. About us. About what I did. Simone looked at him calmly. Christopher, I was talking about myself. About my journey. You were just part of the story. Not the whole story. And not the important part. He flinched. I want you to know I'm getting help. Therapy. I'm trying to understand why I did the things I did. That's good. I hope it helps you. Do you forgive me? Simone considered the question. Forgiveness was complicated. It didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean reconciling. It didn't mean what Christopher did was okay. I've let go of the anger, she said finally. I've moved on with my life. But forgiveness? That's not something I owe you, Christopher. That's something you have to find for yourself. I lost everything. You lost what you threw away. There's a difference. Christopher looked at Jonathan, who'd moved closer to Simone's side. He's a lucky man. No, Simone corrected gently. I'm a lucky woman. Because I found someone who sees me as an equal. Who respects my work and my independence. Who would never dream of stealing from me or diminishing me or making me feel worthless. That's not luck, Christopher. That's what a healthy relationship looks like. Christopher nodded slowly. He looked like he wanted to say more, but what was there to say? All the apologies in the world couldn't undo the damage he'd caused. Couldn't restore what he'd destroyed. I should go, he said. I just wanted to say, I'm glad you're doing well. You deserve it. He walked away. Through the crowd. Out the door. Out of Simone's life completely. You okay? Jonathan asked softly. I'm perfect, Simone said. And she meant it. The rest of the evening was celebration. Dancing with Jonathan. Laughing with Valerie and Gabrielle, who'd both attended the gala. Making plans for future projects. Living in the moment instead of the past. Around midnight, Jonathan and Simone stood on the venue's balcony looking out at the city lights. It was a beautiful night. Clear sky, gentle breeze, the city alive with possibility. You know what I love most about you? Jonathan asked. What? Your strength. Not despite what happened to you. Because of how you handled it. You didn't let Christopher's cruelty make you cruel. You didn't let his betrayal make you bitter. You transformed pain into purpose. I had help, Simone reminded him. But you asked for help. That takes courage. And then you used what you learned to help others. That's extraordinary. Simone leaned against him, feeling safe and loved and completely herself. You know what I love most about you? What? That you've never once made me feel small. Every day with you makes me feel bigger. More capable. More myself. That's how it should be, Jonathan said simply. That's what love is. They stayed on the balcony for a while longer, just being together. Simone thought about how far she'd come. From that hospital bed 2 years ago to this moment. From broken to whole. From controlled to free. From surviving to thriving. Christopher was gone. Really truly gone. Not just physically but from her emotional landscape. He'd become a story she told tonight, an example of what not to accept, what not to tolerate, what to move beyond. And Valerie, Gabrielle, Dennis, they taught her that asking for help wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. That you don't have to fight battles alone. That there are people who will stand with you when you need it most. Most importantly, Simone had taught herself something crucial. That she was valuable on her own. That her worth didn't come from a man's approval or a marriage certificate or being who someone else wanted her to be. Her worth came from her talent, her compassion, her resilience, her ability to take broken pieces and create something beautiful. The pediatric wing was proof of that. The thriving business was proof of that. The loving relationship with Jonathan was proof of that. Christopher had tried to make her nothing. But Simone had proven she was everything. And that, more than any legal victory, more than any financial settlement, more than any revenge, that was the real triumph. Simone Grace had taken her life back. Every single piece. And she'd built something extraordinary from the ashes. Something that was entirely, completely, beautifully her own.